Good morning. It's Monday. No, it's not. It's Tuesday. We had Monday off. Oh, my goodness me. Lazy, lazy, lazy. So here we are back again on Tuesday. Tuesday, the 28th of May. Still May. It's a month that's just dragged out, as opposed to the first 4 months that zipped by so fast, made our heads spin. And what are we faced with? An election. And so I suppose that's going to fill our waking hours for the next little while. Well, it's important, although, as we've discussed on this program, this channel, many a time, reform is drastically needed, desperately needed, and it's not likely to come. I was dwelling on the crowing that is being done in the media about how many Conservative MPs aren't going to stand. In the next election. The suggestion is that old rat's deserting a sinking ship. They're rats, all right, but there have been an enormous number of MPs who had no right whatsoever to be in the House of Commons, to be sitting in government. None whatsoever. They were opportunists, lightweights. And it's those, I think, that we're getting rid of. And if that's a cleansing opportunity, so be it. Let's get rid of these people. We don't need them in the House of Commons, in either party. We need good, solid people. In the case of the Conservatives, those that believe in conservatism. In the case of Labour, those who are true blue socialists without being wholly left-wing. And if we're getting rid of a whole host of MPs, I, for one, say good riddance and an opportunity to start over. Will Sunak and the gang start over? It's difficult to say. Given great opportunities. politicians have been known to stumble around, unable to grasp the fact that an opportunity is there, and even if they did grasp it, what to do with it anyway. Completely dead losses. What's the weather going to be like? Not so hot today. Literally not so hot. 15 degrees, that's all. And we're going to have rain. And certain periods in the day, we're going to have a lot of rain. Between 11 and 12 o'clock, we're going to have 90% sure that we've got rain, even if it's 90%. And it's not fulfilled. We are going to get a bucket full. But it's going to be light rain and a fresh breeze. There you go. There you go. And there I am in a different dimension. Aren't you lucky? Oh my goodness me, aren't you lucky? Ha ha ha. Now, our team, who are a bunch of characters, took the day off, literally, and decided to replicate it throughout the week. So I have no idea who's around this morning. None whatsoever. We'll just have to see who turns up, who comes along, who answers the call. So in the meantime, let us see what is in the news. Because it's fairly vital stuff at the moment. The overall assessment of the papers is end Tory chaos and the Prime Minister's tax cut for pensioners. Whoopee! Anything to make life a little easier for me. And I'm absolutely 100% over the moon. The Guardian. Global outrage after dozens are killed in Israeli airstrikes on Rafah camp. The Guardian reports on an Israeli airstrike in Rafah on Sunday. Fires ignited by the bombing appear to have spread through tents for displaced people, the paper says, overwhelming a nearby Red Cross field hospital. The attack prompted an outcry from global leaders and put ceasefire talks in jeopardy. The Israeli military says the strikes the Israeli military says it was after some senior Hamas militants. It looks as if he got that wrong. And a lot of people have lost their lives. The Express. I'm on your side. The Prime Minister pledges bumper pension rise. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's pledge to boost the state pension leads to the front page of the Daily Express. The paper says Mr. Sunak will give pensioners a £100 tax cut next year by raising their personal allowance. The PM says this will rise to almost £300 a year by the end of the decade. Well, I suppose better than nothing. The Financial Times. Sunak leans on the grey vote with a $2.4 billion tax cut for pensioners. Sunak's plans to cut tax for pensioners is featured on the front page of the Financial Times. The paper says the move is intended to shore up the Conservatives' grey vote. It adds that the £2.4 billion tax cut is likely to be received well by many Tory MPs. He's done something wrong, right then, for once. The Daily Telegraph. The Prime Minister. State pensions will never be taxed, he says. Never be taxed. Remember this day. Never, ever be taxed. Oh. Nigel Farage has challenged Sunak to debate on immigration. Watch this, Farage. He's either going to become a real power in politics or we'll not hear from him again after this election. One of the two. It's either all or nothing for him. The Prime Minister says the plan will give retirees peace of mind and security by automatically raising the threshold at which they start paying income tax each year. The Telegraph reports, writing for the paper, Laura Trott, Chief Financial Secretary to the Treasury, says it means pensioners will never pay income tax under the Conservatives. The Mirror. Starmer tells voters, you can end Tory chaos. Sakir urged voters to stop the chaos under Conservative rule as he pledged to bring economic stability in his first major election speech. The Mirror says. I say it that way, the Mirror says, because it is the Mirror saying it. Metro. You can trust me, Labour leader insists. Sakir. My rocky start in life. Oh, here we go. I'm one of the boys. Yeah. His speech, Starmer's speech, is featured on the front page of the Metro. The Labour leader told voters about his working-class upbringing and how he made easy pocket money cleaning stones for farmers, the paper reports. The Times. City figures back Labour with a call for a new outlook. The Times says it has received a letter from a coalition of business leaders endorsing Labour. In the letter, 120 executives, including Wikipedia founder Jimmy Wales and JD Sports chairman Andrew Higginson, say the election represents the chance to change the industry. They add that a new outlook is needed so Britain can break free from a decade of economic stagnation. The Eye. Labour mayors warn Starmer, we will fight for a better deal. The Eye leads with a warning from Labour mayors who say they are ready to stand up to Mr. Starmer on housing, transport, and council funding if he wins power. Mr. Starmer tells the paper he is expecting robust conversations with regional leaders, but that they can't expect to get everything they want. Daily Mail. Four in 10 to quit private school under Keir's tax. A major report finds the state sector will be swamped if fees rise. The Mail reports on a survey which found that Labour's pledge to change private schools 20% VAT would mean more than that. Well, just as it is. The Daily Star. Is it going to give us a little giggle? You sick man, Ramsay. Beans do not go on pizza. Gordon is a moron, it says. Angry Italians hate the full English dish. The Daily Star takes aim at Gordon Ramsay, saying the chef sparked horror by creating a full English pizza topped with baked beans. What an abomination, the paper says. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, of course, it's all really surrounding the election, and I suppose that we really get to kick off now that we've got the holiday behind us. We're expecting plenty of activity in this part of the world Maria Caulfield is the sitting MP for Lewis. James McCleary is the really serious challenger for the Lib Dems. And I'm sure that there'll be others who throw their hats in the ring. I haven't seen the list yet. But the Greens have got to, haven't they? I mean, they're so all-powerful and arrogant at the moment here in Lewis. But this is the first time that we've had new constituencies. The Electoral Commission have been busy over the last few years redefining the boundaries of where people vote, and therefore where MPs stand. And I'm not absolutely sure. They've taken a little bit here and added a little bit there. I'm not quite sure where, in fact, Lewis constituency is anymore. The heart of it is still the same, but sometimes peripherals can alter the way that a community votes. And I think that's probably what's happened to Lewis. So it could be anybody's up for grabs. Huh. Yeah, it could be. Ah, right, okay. It's only 8:22. Ah. I'm going to be rabbiting on for 22 minutes. And we've got plenty of people who I think are coming on today because we were on holiday yesterday, and they've got plenty to say. Plenty to say and plenty to do. So I'm sure that they will be. We'll we'll send out the invitations in a minute or two. Okay. What's been happening locally? We should be able to find out. Let's have a look. Let's see, in your area, Lewis Chamber Music Festival lines up top performers. That's good. Chamber music is quite good, and the fact that we're getting top performers. Headaches from hell, the 4 types, and what they're trying to tell you. Lewis District Council makes progress on Ringmer swimming pool. Oh, well, let's have a look at that, shall we? That looks as if it might be interesting. Councillor Johnny Dennis said he is delighted the council has managed to save the pool. A swimming pool which was threatened with permanent closure will reopen later this year. Ringmer Pool could have shut for good in 2022 when it was not considered financially viable. The pool off Lewis Road, Ringmer, has been out of action since an equipment failure in September 2020. In 2022, Lewis District Council stepped in with a rescue plan and has been working with East Sussex County Council and Wave Active to bring it back into use. Like any older swimming pool, the years of pumping and filtering millions of litres of water and chemicals have taken its toll on the original plant machinery. The councils are funding the replacement of this essential equipment. Well, that's an interesting piece of news. Is there anything else really exciting? An A26 Ringmer crash, a woman in critical condition, and 3 others hurt. Mm-hmm. The rest is, it's all a bit messy itself. Yes. Your Central Lewis. The best fish and chips restaurants takeaway. See, there's nothing terribly substantial in these roundups, and that's what we're mulling over: is how because it's an expensive thing to actually gather local news, and we've been discussing it some time in Mirador because we don't have a lot of money, but we recognise that its validity and its importance to people. Well, is Maria Caulfield running for election? It looks like it's going to be a straight fight. Yes, indeed. And so it's now past, and we will send out a couple of invitations. To join us on what is now, it is raining now. Not at all. I don't think that Dr. Mark can join us this morning because he had a surprise treat from his wife, who said, "Dr. Mark, you look a little pale. I think I'd better take you away from that awful Keith Hayes and Mirador television for a week and take you on holiday." And being the wimp that he is, he said, "Oh, yes, dear, yes, dear. Take me away from all of this." Instead of standing up and saying, "No, no, I will stay with the ship. I will fight back, and I will make everything worthwhile." No. We could we could invite Maggie, although she doesn't like it terribly early. We're going to have to get that girl used to being a journalist. Up at the crack of dawn to see what the hell's going on. Pass on to your fellow citizens. And we've got Kit from the grammar school, Kit Wood, coming in at about 10:30 or so. And I think Liza Page is coming in tomorrow. Yes, I think Liza is coming in tomorrow. Because, of course, it throws all our schedules out when we have a shutdown, which we did over yesterday. Yeah. Okay. I think that's enough. For the moment. Oh. Well, we've got. Oh, there we go. That's what we've got to do. There. So, is the pub is back at full swing. We've got a quiz on, I think it's June the 6th. Let me see if I can turn my body around. I can't quite see. But yes, it is. I'm reading it back to front. But it's June the 6th, Sunday, June the 6th. We've got the quiz. It's been a bit quiet while the sun has been out in the pub, despite the fact that the food is still there. The Sunday lunch, I was feeling a little queasy on Sunday, so I didn't come and take part in the lunchtime frenzy. Nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that it's there, and it was a very good value for money. Very good value for money. Always is a good value for money. So the Black Horse, really, really a goodie, a goodie, a nice pub, friendly, good beer for those people who are experts. I, I'm going to take now. I eat chocolate in front of you because it's semi-medicinal. Those people who are regulars know I have Parkinson's. Curbs my activities severely. But to get around, I have what's known as a mobility scooter. Doo-doo. Well, yesterday, I went for an early coffee. I was coming home, took my eye off the ball, slammed the scooter into an abutment onto the pavement. It's brought it to a jarring halt. And it threw me out of the seat onto the road. Now, I'm used to falling. I'm rather proud of the way I swoon to the floor when my brain decides that it's time for me to fall. But the one thing I can't do, not very easily on my own anyway, is get back up again. And sure enough, there I was left splayed on the asphalt of the road, looking ridiculous, embarrassed beyond anything, that I was tumbled into the street. I am happy to say my faith in human nature was restored. The traffic came totally to a stop. Drivers of buses and taxis and lorries and cars all jumped out to make sure I was all right and to help me up. And were quite willing to spend a bit more time if I had required it. They were magnificent and would have spent more time if it had been required. It restored my faith in human nature, whereas publicly, I've been having a go at us as a community. Not fit for purpose, I've been saying. Well, this group of people, and they were a cross section, and they all showed concern. And I eat humble pie. My neighbor, known and unknown, is ready to help when I'm in trouble. And I'm grateful. But even more so, that I've been proved wrong. And that the average bloke and the average woman are quite prepared to go one step beyond and help their less fortunate, well, let's face it, crippled neighbor. It gave me a very, very warm feeling. And here we have Mr. Philip. Good morning, Philip. Perhaps not got his loudspeaker turned on yet. Good morning, Philip. Oh, he's gone. We sometimes we sometimes have to try it 2 or 3 times before we get the systems to work. It's a bit of a drawback, but I have to say that the StreamYard system that we use to broadcast is as good a small-scale system as I've ever seen. Even though I screw it up sometimes.
Chin strap here.
Eh?
It's chin strap here.
Yeah. You can hear me now, can you?
I can. I don't know why that was.
I know.
I'm as baffled as you are, Fumbledum.
There are little glitches. Anyway, I was just telling people that I was thrown out of my seat on the Red Devil yesterday. But
oh, that's not funny.
All sorts of people came and rushed to my aid and restored my faith in human nature. They were fantastic. I didn't hurt myself because I've learned to land, to have soft landings. But getting up, as you know, getting up is a difficulty. But they helped me up, helped me back into the seat, made sure that the scooter was working, that I was working, and sent me on my way.
Well, that's marvellous. They probably orchestrated it so at least you weren't speeding by and they could at least say hello to you.
That could be.
But on a serious level, how did that happen? Did you hit a curve or something?
I misjudged. I went to look to cross the road to make sure there are no cars coming.
Yes.
And I hadn't quite stopped, and I hit a little projection. I'm not quite sure what it was, which brought the scooter to a grinding halt. It wasn't going very fast. It doesn't go very fast anyway, but enough to be a bit traumatic.
So the velocity, as it ground to a halt, its velocity threw you out of your seat.
Yes.
Oh dear. But
first time that's happened.
You weren't injured?
No. When it comes to my framework, my skeleton, I seem to be able to um, land well enough so that I don't hurt myself. Although I'm not going to test that any more often than I have to.
No, absolutely. I mean, does the Red Devil not have a seatbelt?
Yes, it does, but I never wear it.
Right. Nothing stubborn about that.
It
Anyway,
just seems superfluous to me.
I just thought I'd check in, say hello, see how you are. As you know, I can't stay long because we're going out for our anniversary today.
Yes.
And you missed John Predder off your schedule.
Today?
No. You sent an emergency timetable out by email, didn't you? And you gave a list of people. You gave a list of people who will be appearing. Well, tomorrow, Wednesday, 0900 to 0945, is John Prideaux.
Oh, good. I sometimes, I mean, one of the things that I want to get our new addition, Paul Cheeseman, to set up is a proper schedule each week. Because my memory it gets worse and worse, and I can't remember who's supposed to be on. I need it in black and white in front of me. So,
well, your email is perfectly good. I mean, you obviously constructed that, and it's got pretty much everybody who normally comes on.
But not John Prideaux. And I mean, John
he's fortnightly.
Yeah.
And I can always remind you about him, but but tomorrow he'll be on. He confirmed yesterday.
Oh, good, excellent.
So that'll be for 45 minutes.
I was I spent part of yesterday looking at the trends of small scale television. Some of the things that were being used in 2024 by people similar to ourselves. And A1 is, or AI rather, artificial intelligence, is becoming more and more popular. And the general consensus is that while there are lots of worries about AI, that in the media field, as long as you're not talking about information and content, but in terms of helping highlight stuff and improve the picture and so on and so forth, that there is a lot to be considered. So I'm taking some of this stuff to bed with me and lying and putting myself to sleep, seeing how we can improve Mirador.
Yeah, well, we can start with your devices, can't we? I keep beefing on about this, but you can have all the ideas in the world, but you need devices that you can rely on home and away.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Susie will recruit her friend when back ASAP to have a look at your stuff.
Well, I shall see her today, and we can get an update on that.
Yes, well, even if you could just get your home iPad working, there's a reason for everything with technology. There has to be a reason why that volume isn't working.
Yes. I suspect what I hadn't understood totally, and I'm sure that a lot of people haven't, is that every time that they put out a new computer or a laptop or whatever, is that it is one notch better than the one before.
Yes, it's called the iOS, but that's just the level of software. That doesn't affect a basic thing like the microphone.
No.
You can improve a microphone quality by, I suppose, better chips and all that business. But a microphone is a microphone, and a volume is a volume. So these incremental improvements are really to do with the far more sophisticated things a computer can do. So the example, Jackie's old iPad that I tried to set up StreamYard on, that is now so out of date on the iOS that it won't run StreamYard.
Exactly.
At all.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it to do it because it needed, and that's why we got her a more up-to-date iPad, not for StreamYard, but for her, because there were so many other things that she couldn't access because the machine was incapable of upgrading anymore. Because these updates are automatic. They are sent by the server to the machine, and you're given a reminder so you can download it manually, or it will do it automatically.
Yes.
On a certain date. So, in a sense, you don't need to do anything other than have a machine, a device that will take the upgrade.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I suspect that I've got a couple of machines that are so old.
Yeah, but I am, or I'll leave it to Susie's friend, but I am insistent that's not about the microphone. The microphone is a basic,
maybe not.
The microphone is a basic thing. But we'll see. All I want to happen is that this friend of Susie's, he or she, has a good look at what you've got up there.
Yeah. Well, it's in the works. It's in the works.
Well,
right.
A nice surprise I had this morning was Jackie, bless her, actually bought me a present. And it's Philip Larkin's selected poems. And the spooky thing is, I saw this book on Amazon yesterday because I've just finished reading a load of John Betjeman. Because Radio 3 does a program called Words and Music. And one of them recently was about Betjeman and his love of trains and Victoriana and his contempt for modern buildings like Slough, bomb Slough. And of course, it links up with Larkin. Well, I nearly bought this book yesterday, but decided against it. But hey, presto, bless her, she's bought it for me for our anniversary. So
wonderful.
I'm a lucky boy. But anyway, I'm taking her for a fancy meal later.
Oh, I say.
And by taxi, so we can both sup as much as we would like. Not that she drinks very much. She doesn't. I do. She doesn't. But so later on, you've got is it Liza and Kit?
I'm not sure. I had a chat to Liza the other day, and we are getting a bit jammed up towards the end of today. For all the people that have said that they can't come in today, there are as many that have said they can come in tomorrow.
Well, hang on. Today, Harry is confirmed. You've got Kit coming in. It's a Tuesday. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Liza would normally be on a Monday, wouldn't she?
Yes, she would.
And so would Harry normally be on a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got enough to be getting on with.
Plenty to fill in, but I've been working. We're coming of age now. We're really doing some terrific stuff with terrific people. and we got to settle down to a bit more consistency, which is one of the key elements of television.
Yeah, yes, but you see, as you've pointed out yourself, we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
We're not paid. The money wouldn't matter to me anyway, but we are not employees. And we have other responsibilities. The current example with me, as you know, although this is her last term now, thankfully, is taking Jackie and bringing her back from work. But that will all have finished in July, and she's then, like me, retired. So I won't have to do that bloody school run anymore, which will be a relief. So I think people generally they're not bad at keeping to a rough schedule, Keith. They know, like Melissa, Mark. All right, he's away this week, but there we are. He's probably stuck on a train somewhere that's broken down.
No, he's yes. His wife has taken him away for a little holiday. Of course, Mark is he's almost recuperated now, but of course he had prostate cancer.
Yes, he did, and it's not a quick progress.
He's a bit like us. Nobody would ever know that we were ill because we laugh and we giggle and we tell it to bugger off.
No, he's got a great sense of humour
and a great approach to.
Yeah, I mean, I think he thoroughly enjoys coming on Mirador.
Well, there's no point in anybody coming on who doesn't enjoy it.
No, that's a very fair point. No. All right, well, I will love you and leave you, and I will see you at this time tomorrow.
All right, with John Prideaux.
How shall we do it? Shall I just run into your program, or do I start a new stream myself? What do you prefer?
I'm quite happy for you to start a new stream. I'll bow out at about 10 to 9.
Right. I'll send you a text to remind you, but yeah, that'd be great. And I'll start a new stream for him and me with you in the background, and then it's a discrete program,
Yes.
So it doesn't get lost in hours of fumble bum.
No, well, yeah, well, not to be discussed here, but that's something that I've got to change. It is great having 3 hours of streamed broadcasting, but when it comes to managing it into manageable viewing sections, you can't.
No, you can't unless you end the stream and take set breaks.
That's right. Yeah.
So you should consider that.
Yeah,
because it's a long time.
Well, it's the way we did do it, and then it got changed somehow. But we'll bring it back.
Think about it, because it's a long time. Even with guests on, it's a long time to anchor. I couldn't do 3 hours. I could do an hour max on my own. So I'm with you. You need a break. Anyway, I'll set up a new stream, not live, at about 5 to 9 tomorrow. Invite JP on, and we'll take it from there.
All right.
And then I'll end that stream when we finish, hopefully avoiding Stuart. And then you can set up another one for Stuart.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Now have a nice meal today.
Well, I hope so. It's a highly recommended restaurant in a village called Maidhurst, which is near us here. So it literally is in the middle of the Downs.
Yeah.
And certainly Jackie's wanted to go there for some time. We did have a previous booking, but there was a reason we had to cancel it. I don't know whether it was illness or something. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But this time it's confirmed. And yes, thank you. I'll let you know tomorrow how it goes, how it went.
Yes, do. Give us a little review.
I shall do that, Mr. Keith. I shall do that.
Right.
Anyway, I'll say goodbye, toodle pip, and see you tomorrow, mate.
Okie doke.
Bye-bye.
Toodles. Bye. Well, there we go. Easing back into we really are aiming for the end of August, beginning of September. Summer in television is always a very odd time. People don't watch the same way. They don't stay in to watch. Broadcasters don't broadcast about the same things. So it is hopefully by the time that we get to September and start to look at the autumn, then we shall be so smooth and so organized you won't recognize us. Okie dokie. Well, now we should have Harry on at some stage. But he's not with us yet. So let me see if we've got anything to fill our time. I'll tell you what, we could do a little sting. Wouldn't hurt, would it? There we go. There's a nice little sting to let you know that you're watching Mirador television. That we Hi. It's amazing. Oh, I'll tell you what. Yes, let's remember Mr. Catlin, Stephen Catlin, marvelous man. Let's take a look at one of his old programs.
Hello, we are at the Western Road in Lewes, the county town of
Oh, I'm sorry to keep you while I was farting around there. This is the first day back after a holiday. There we go, Shetland's Corner.
Hello, we are at the Western Road in Lewes, the county town of East Sussex. Although I must say, if you look around, there's nothing much to convince you of its status. Take these public toilets. You will see the notice here. Please be aware that these toilets are locked due to the dangerous state of the building. You do wonder why the owner has neglected it so much, and I will tell you that the owner is Lewes District Council, so perhaps you will understand the anger and frustration that they can't even be bothered to look after their assets. But we come along to another facility, which is at this end, which until a year ago was working. Do admire the hanging gardens of Babylon on the way. They can't even cut that back properly. But here, the disabled facility, which was much in demand by the church opposite when it opened. And this bit, the only part of the facility that didn't work, but did work, has been closed for over a year because how apt they are in their words. Currently, there is no electricity. You admire someone has a subtle sense of humour there, if nothing else. But why haven't they mended that? A year since it was closed. And this facility isn't open again because of the dangerous state of the building. And if we just come to the end of this forecourt, you will see how big the site is. We come forward to here, earning no revenue for the district council at all. And it goes back some way, as you will see. Well, just see the end of the undergrowth, and you get an idea of how big this site is. So the scheme I came up with some 3 years ago, which the Deputy Chief Executive thought was rather good, would be to demolish this toilet block and rebuild it on a footprint a third the size, which is all we need. Building it up to this boundary with the pavement. And that would give enough room above, beside and at the back for one-bedroom council housing. The district council own the site. Buying the land would cost them no money. And of course, it would bring money into the housing revenue. But the deplorable thing is that for over a year, they haven't even been bothered to repair the electricity for the one bit of the facility that was open. And I think that is a neglect of public assets and probably not very good management of the buildings on their part. You may draw your own conclusions, of course. Don't be swayed by me. And here is further evidence that the county town perhaps doesn't hold its head that high. All these drink cans and bottles scattered around land which belongs to the county council. Now there is a local order in this town banning drinking of alcohol in public. You may look around and wonder where the public is, but this drinking goes on late at night and nothing is done about stopping that. But the point of today's lecture is this wonderful array of dead trees and living bindweed. The county council took this back. I used to look after it along with the planting here. And the county council said, it is untidy, we're going to take it all back. Their taking it back meant that they didn't water any of these beds for over a year. So what was in there has died, more or less. And they have new trees, but they never watered them since they put them in. So throughout this long, hot summer, it's withered and died. And I wonder what sort of advertisement this and the bottles and everything else and the litter around, what sort of impression does that give of East Sussex County Council, whose offices are just behind me? Now I have written to the County Council and said, look, for the cost of 200 quid, to get some new plants, since everything else seems to have withered and died, I will continue to look after it at no cost to you at all, because I, unlike you, are proud of this town. They haven't replied to the email, and as far as I know, they haven't responded to the pithy paragraphs which were in the Sussex Express last week. Can I ask that the two councils, both strategic authorities, the district and the county, show that they have some pride in the town, the council tax of which enables them to exist? And there will be another bit about council tax as the year progresses. We'll talk about that next time. But I hope you will agree with me that even me doing it for nothing would give a rather better result than the careful and studied conservation of dead trees, which is what the county seems only to be able to manage.
Stephen, who, amongst his other virtues, and he had many, was a very good investigative reporter. And we miss his reports because he dug up some embarrassing things. That site, by the way, was not developed according to his plan, but it was actually improved, and those toilets are now working and helping provide comfort stations to people who find themselves in Lewis. So there we are. Okay. Now, I want to remind you on a weekly basis about this. So let's go down to the lost gardens of Greyfriars. All I've got to do is remember how to operate all this. Here we are. I think that. Huh. No. No. Oh, here we are. Yes.
Hello, here we are at what was Pinwell Lane. It ran up through here to the top of the High Street. It became closed off some years ago, and this land is now called Manorial Waste. And we have to thank Every, the great Lewis ironmaster, for bringing the gateway from the Grey Friars Franciscan Priory here. This is the only bit that remains. The Premier Inn is now on the site and had been a railway station before. This is the much vaunted secret garden. Until just a few years ago, it was covered in weeds, brambles, and goodness knows what else. I suggested to the friends of Lewis that it would be better, considering its location behind this ancient gateway, if we could cultivate it a bit. And aided by Jane Tyra and Gillian Ross, I've managed to turn it into this. I'm somewhat embarrassed to say a lot of people keep coming to take photos of it. And I can see there's an overturned pot I must rescue. But here we are. This is one of the better examples of the fruits of my labours. And I hope it gives you pleasure. Thank you. this, the family burial place of William, Edwin and Anne Baxter. And dear little Emily in amongst the undergrowth somewhere. The hollyhocks will be butchered this week. But it is rather nice, the bizarre colours matching exactly how Victorian colour printing was done. But it will get a tidy up this week, I promise. Because it'll be me that does it. Oh, and the bees. I'm so pleased to see bees and butterflies around here. There is one feeding. Isn't that wonderful? There's one bee I've saved. It's easy to get lost in the middle of this. See, zinnias, nearly 3 foot tall. They're only supposed to grow a foot. Must have been a good horse. So much colour. Well, I don't think death should be somber. It should always be a bit bright and jolly. We'll just move this. Let the colour radiate. That's it. It looks good from the other end, don't it? Like all shows, backstage is not so pretty. Mind the bricks behind you.
Much missed on many levels. A former mayor, a former councillor at both district and town level, and a man who didn't sit back and let the bureaucrats get away with murder. He was on the spot, and he knew what he was talking about, which is more than most of them do. There you are. I'm back being cynical again. Oh yeah, I'm a little weary. Sometimes getting a good night's sleep is difficult when you've got Parkinson's, but nonetheless, we struggle on. and do things not terribly well. We're making an appeal at the moment for people to come and join us. We need one or two more people to do the odd program, and we need a bit of backup, as Philip just said. Everybody's a volunteer. And they can't always fulfill their commitments, but we don't have that many people to back up. So we can we could do with some more people, and if you have the mind to get involved in television, please do. Ah. Well, I'm just looking through. Now we're getting into heavy waters now, accessing files which aren't ours. No. No, this coming in after the holiday hasn't really worked terribly well. What time is it? It's 9:30. I don't want to go away because the links. Let's just remind you of a series of programs that we're working on.
Cash point fraud. It's moving south, so watch your cash carefully. It's a dog's life. If you own one, microchip it. It's now the law. And Lewis Prison, often home to the rich and famous. A newspaper, please, Dawn.
Certainly, Keith. There we go.
Thank you very much. There you go. Hi, Seb.
Hello.
A pint, please.
No worries. Thank you.
Coffee, please, Kath.
Good morning. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry we don't take card.
It's hard to think now what you can't buy with a credit or debit card. But there are still nice little cafes, like this one, where cash is still king. Or, believe it or not, money is still needed to buy a bus ticket. And then, of course, they're still repaying the tenner you borrowed off a pal and forgot to give back. Okay, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Keith Hayes with the latest edition of Catch 'em, the crime show that deals with the bad people in Lewis. It's possible to buy almost anything with a card nowadays, but we do need cash from time to time. And anyway, it's a comfortable feeling to have a fiver or two in your pocket. How do we get it? From cash machines, of course. And the villains know it. There has been a spate of tampering with cash machines in the north of England, and Sussex police are warning the public down here that it's spreading south. Police forces across the country have reported that a number of cash machines have been tampered with or modified so that criminals can get customers' bank details. Thieves tampered with ATMs in the north of England this week, and local police said it is advising the public to be vigilant and report anything suspicious. If it looks as if the machine has been tampered with, call the bank immediately and then call police on 101. Better safe than sorry. We're a nation of pet lovers. One man and his dog has been the mantra of the English for an age and a half. But as this April, dogs have a new legal responsibility other than walkies, dinner time, and cuddles. All dogs throughout the UK must be microchipped. Owners who fail to comply face a fine of £500. Authorities estimate that there are still more than 1 million animals that haven't had a chip inserted. But the law applies to every dog and every owner. It's now the law. The chip is about the size of a grain of rice. It's inserted in the loose skin on the back of the neck. The chip contains a code which tells vets or dog catchers who the owners are and where they can be contacted. The scheme is designed to help reunite stray dogs with their families, identify reckless owners, and save local councils thousands of pounds looking after strays. So keep the lead, but get the microchip. It's now the law. Hello, darling. I'll be late home for dinner. How very thoughtful of me to let the good lady know. But if you do it while driving your car on your handheld mobile, it will be an expensive meal. If the police catch you, you'll get 3 penalty points on your license, £100 fine. And if you have been particularly dangerous while driving, the fine could rise to £1,000 and being disqualified from driving. It's dangerous and has cost lives. Burglars.
Well, that brought that to an abrupt end. Okay, I can't keep hanging around. Like this. Let's go to our old favourite, My Bloody Past.
I'm Keith Hayes, and you'll be sick and tired of my face by the time this series ends, but I hope you'll bear with me as I shuffle through the streets of this lovely town, pop in and out of its pubs, and tell you a story of its bloody past. In Saxon times, it was known as loos. The modern term for toilet might have come from it, I suppose. but the town became respectable and is now known as Lewes. Lewis, not lose. But its original name does come from Saxon times. And this pretty little town in East Sussex, nicely tucked under the shelter of the South Downs, has had this high street for longer than written records go back. Pretty normal sort of UK high street, really. Typical shops and stores each side of it. Looks just like High Street UK. High Street UK, from John O'Groats to Land's End, have all got a history. But this little stretch of road has a violent and bloody history. And that history reflects much of the history of the country itself. A pint pulled from a tap is the tipple of most Englishmen, I suspect. They sure tippled in Lewes in the past. This pub goes back to 1742. There's a list of the landlords to prove it. Today, sitting on the high street, it's one of the 16 pubs in a town of 16,000. 150 years ago, there were 63 pubs in Lewes and 18 breweries. And in those days, there were only 9,000 people. Wow, what a talk there. Yes, but true. And over the next few programmes, I'm going to take a closer look at some of the bloodier and more sensational events that have occurred on this seemingly normal high street. But right now, I'm just going to paint a general picture of this tiny English town, before I get to the bloody and the exotic. The high street is dominated by a Norman castle, one of the oldest Norman castles in the country. It was built not long after the invasion of 1066. It housed the Norman garrison, who ensured the people living inside its walls were kept safe. Indeed, Lewes was a walled town, and there is brick-by-brick evidence of the 4 gates that gave entry to the town.
By the way, Lewes isn't a corruption of Lou. It's the Saxon word for a hill. And if you thought that Lewes had lots of pubs, it has far more hilly roads. Far more even than the rest of the country, I think.
The modern-day Lewes is well used by its people. Lots of shops, markets, and even tea rooms. It also has a lot of parades. At the end of the school year, a ceremony takes place called patina. All year long, pupils design and build exotic costumes ready to parade down the high street.
Raphael, I walked onto the high street in Lewes a couple of years ago to be greeted with a lot of children running around in funny costumes. What on earth is that all about?
It's called Moving on Parade, and it's something we started 16 years ago. Started from a wish of parents to bring more art into schools because they see how much schools struggle demands of the government, and they wanted to support the school in that. So we started something called Patina, which is parents and teachers in the arts.
Right.
Moving on Parade celebrates the transition from primary to secondary education of all the children in Lewes District Council.
Very colourful costumes. How do you decide what the costumes are? You're the artistic director, so you better give me a good answer on this.
So every year we have a theme, and the theme this year is Wonders of Our World. Last year we asked the community to suggest different artists that they would like to see on the parade, and loads of suggestions came in. and we shortlist the huge list into 16 schools, which was the amount of schools that took part last year. We had Frida Kahlo, and we had Picasso, and we had Van Gogh, and we have Giacometti, and we had Andy Warhol. So they doing illustrations and designs, and then the patina artists take all the children's idea and adapt it into a practical design that the children are actually able to make in a couple of days. We invite about 8 or 10 people from every school to come and learn the skills of the carnival costume, and they start to make the big make that the school going to carry. And after that, the patina artists going into the school and work with the children on their individual costumes. We're trying to really do it as a enjoyment, getting people together. They're all gonna meet in their secondary school later on. We're trying to do we try to meet each other beforehand as well. So we're doing events all year round for the benefit of the whole community, not just for the year sixes.
You do other things. You said you go to the schools. What do you do in the schools?
So our next event is on the 22nd of April. It's called Dance Your Socks Off. And because the theme this year is Wonders of Our World, we thought it'll be really fun to have an evening of teaching flamenco, bhangra, and the sirtaki with world food. We're going to have sushi, we're going to have international cocktails, we're going to have professional dance callers who are going to teach the dance, and it's going to be a really fun event, and that's for children as well.
The cocktails, I told you Lewis is a drinking town.
Yeah, we're pretty good at cocktails. Growing every year, so we're making contact with our twin towns. We're making contact with Lewis in America. There's a group of them artists from Lewis in America coming to Lewis in June. We made contact with them, and what we would really like is to use this format in other places, because Lewis is the only place that we know of who celebrates their moving on from primary to secondary schools, and it's people that hear about it, they are impressed, and it will be really nice for other people, other children in other communities to do the same.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was unique to Lewis and a very unusual operation. Well, how do the children react to it? I mean, generally speaking, do you get great support from the kids?
Yes, we do. And because it's been going for so many years, it becomes a part of the cultural calendar of the town. So young children know that when they get to year 6, they'll do the moving on parade, and all the siblings did it, and they've seen the rest of the older ones doing it. So it's kind of something that they look forward to.
I'm known for wearing strange costumes. As you can see, my hats are still there in this episode, so I don't think I should be marching, but I most certainly will come to the cocktails.
Great.
Raffaello, thank you so much.
The adults have their turn, and on November the 5th, the biggest Guy Fawkes celebration anywhere in the world takes place. Exotic costumes, burning crosses, stuffed with fireworks.
What do you want to suggest? You'll be coming what? Come up to Nero or to the Black Horse. Yeah, okay. Well, I've got kit at 10:30, and then I shall climb onto the scooter and I shall come down and reach you at. It'll probably be a little after 11.
There's a bit more to the bonfire celebration, though, than just the gunpowder plot.
We having been at holiday yesterday, we jammed up.
Queen Mary was determined to bring Roman Catholicism back to England. Right here on the High Street, she burned 17 people at the stake who wouldn't convert. The dungeon, where they were held before being so horribly slaughtered, is still here, up these steps, being the last walk the condemned men would take. It was a horrible death. They were put into tar barrels, which were then set alight. Pretty bloody stuff. But we'll leave the High Street for a few minutes Then we'll bring you more gore, blood and guts.
I think the government stinks. And I think the last government stank. And what's more, I think the government even before that stank. Whether I believe what is important is whether I can say it without being locked up by the King's men. It wasn't always so. The rights enjoyed in a free democracy started right here. It was here, near to the High Street, that blood was shed in the name of freedom. It was match of the day, the King versus the barons. King Henry III was roundly defeated at the Battle of Lewes, just on the edge of the town. Despite holding the castle, the huge priory which stood near the town, and right here in our bloody High Street. Panicking soldiers for the pursuing forces of Simon de Montfort. The Battle of Lewes is said to be the first step towards democracy in this country. That was in 1243. When you say the Battle of Lewes to most people around this country now, they glance at you with vacant eyes. They don't know what it's about. What was it about?
Well, you're right. Most people here don't know about it. What happened was Simon de Montfort and his barons were arguing with the king and his men about representation in Parliament, whereas the king, the king just had all of his men and a lot of his French relatives in Parliament, and he was barons very heavily, and all of his money was going to the French relatives or going abroad, and the barons were not very happy about this. So they wanted at least half of the 24 men in Parliament to be elected barons. So, I mean, though it's not very democratic in the sense that we have it today, it's the start of that representation of a view that is not just the king's view on how things should be run. Simon de Montfort got to hear that the king was down at the Priory of St. Pancras, and why he was there was for the Feast of St. Pancras in the middle of May. And of course it was a big feast and people would come from all over the world, actually, all over Europe to the feast. So he needed somewhere as big as the Priory to be able to feed all these people and entertain them for a few days. And that's why he was here. Simon de Montfort was up country in northern Sussex in some of his estates with his men, and he heard that the king was down here, and he sent messengers. He sent bishops of Winchester and London down with money, with £30,000, which is a fortune in those days, to try and negotiate a settlement with the king. The king was a little bit reticent to go into war with Simon de Montfort because, yes, they were brother-in-laws and he was an old man. They were in their late 50s at the time. Not that that's old now, but it was then. But the king's brother, Richard of Alamein, also called King of the Romans, etc., he wanted war. And, of course, Prince Edward, hothead, he definitely wanted war. So they settled, you know, the ransom money was sent back, and the envoys, the bishops were sent back, and so it was war the next day. They negotiated the Mise of Lewes, most of which was, you know, yes, we took this castle, well, we give you it back, and you give us this, and we'll ransom this man and that man for this man and that man, that kind of thing. But it also set down where the king would say, you know, 24 of the 24, we're going to have 12 elected barons, so that we're going to have the beginning of a parliamentary election. And Simon de Montfort made the king hand over his seals, which meant that the king had no power. So Simon de Montfort became the de facto king. It changed the king's complete and outright power. And Prince Edward then went on to, as king, ratify the clauses of the Magna Carta and the provisions of Oxford. And those began to change the king's power. And it also meant things like, if a woman died as a widow, her dowry money was hers. It didn't need to be given over to her husband's family and sons and what have you.
This is started women's rights as well.
There you go.
My goodness
There
me.
you go. The Normans did it for us.
The man who gave the name to the House of Commons and according to at least one historian, named America the United States, preached his heretical views in the town's pubs.
Here we go again. Pubs in Lewes. You can't get away from them.
There's a tale handed down from Crown landlord to Crown landlord that Tom Paine was barred from drinking in that bar because he harassed and harangued the regulars to the point where they wouldn't drink anymore. They were fed up with Tom preaching the rights of man. So he walked across the street to the coaching inn, the White Hart,
where a more lenient landlord turned a blind eye, or, more likely, a deaf ear to the ravings of this revolutionary.
It seemed that he used to like to spend his social hours here and his active political discussion times here in volatile discussion with a group which I believe we thought was called the Headstrong Club, because it still meets today and they call it the Headstrong Club today. But I gather from a local historian that it was called the White Hart Dining Club. Oh. And Thomas Paine, up in our sheriff's room, the oak-panelled function room, basically plotted the American Revolution and for a struggle for independence, which resulted in the final Declaration of Independence, an authenticated copy of which we have in the sheriff's room, and he was credited with originating that. And in turn, he dubbed the White Hart Hotel as the cradle of American independence.
He had some remarkable phrases, didn't he? I mean, according to Bill Bryson, he coined the first time the phrase the House of Commons, and also Bryson says that he coined the phrase the United States. So now the White Hart goes down in history as the cradle of independence. It's wonderful. But whoever the landlord was at the time embraced him and said, "Come on in, we love to hear you talk."
It certainly wasn't me. No, you're right. And yes, I think probably as any hotelier, always keen for a little bit of business, and it developed into quite an active dining club, I gather, because they had their volatile political discussions over dinner.
No record of you throwing him out of the hotel?
No. No, but I have to say that during the times that they have met here recently, we've had some very interesting volatile speakers, lots of celebrities, actors, and I remember Tony Benn's voice drilling through the sheriff's room door. It said, I ought not say too much, but it said that a lot of decisions are made here after the council chambers has closed. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think Lewes has embraced Thomas Paine very well. I'm very proud of him because he lived just up the road in the Bull Inn, and of course it was a very easy little trot, and even after he had imbibed, he wouldn't have far to go.
So our Tom, getting nowhere at home, he worked briefly as a customs officer in this house here, married the boss's daughter in the church here, within the town's walls, then took off to America.
In Lewes, he was ranting. In the colonies, he was making sense.
He preached revolution, and revolution was what he got. The American colonies broke away to form a new country, the United States. There are many more buildings that either face or back onto the high street. Lewes Prison is a few hundred yards up the road. It has held many famous people, including pop star Mick Jagger. Jagger famously talked his way to a prison phone, called the White Hart Hotel, and ordered a takeaway, which was duly delivered. Tucked away behind these buildings was a naval prison. 250 Russian prisoners captured in a naval battle in the Crimea War were incarcerated here in 1854. Life was harsh for the ratings, but the officers roamed the town at will, socializing with the locals and dining at the tables of the high and the mighty in Lewes. 17 of the ratings died while in prison. and a monument to them stands in the graveyard of a local church. This impressive structure was built by Tsar Alexander II, and its upkeep is still paid for by the Russian embassy in London. There are many other events that make the High Street interesting. The days of great circuses parading their animals. The Prince Regent winning a bet, driving a coach and four down the cobbled street. It's a wonder he didn't break his neck. So today I've taken a snapshot look at Lewes High Street. High Street UK. Every high street has a history. And there are thousands of high streets across the country. And this is just one of them. More high street tales tomorrow. Meanwhile, where's that pint?
Well, it's a repeat, but television is full of repeats, particularly when you putting out 20 hours of programs a week, and which is considered quite a lot for local television. So I hope you enjoy it. And over the next over the next couple of weeks, we'll be pushing the other 7 episodes out for you. It's a fascinating story. And while some of it is very well known, other parts aren't well known at all. So we still haven't had anybody join us. So I guess Kit up next. And we'll just make sure. We haven't got haven't got anybody saying we're not coming. Oh, we had a message from Harry to say that he didn't receive the link. I think that having given everything the systems a day off yesterday is that they got rusty and not working the way that they should. So hopefully we shall have Harry in just a minute or two. And speak of the devil, and he's bound to appear, and there he is. Good morning, Harry.
Good morning.
Yes,
Yes, good morning.
The system must have had a headache because it wasn't used yesterday. All's well and ends well. How are you?
I'm fine. It's a rainy day here, not too warm, but we get the variation in weather this time of year, and
Yeah,
probably very similar to what you've got.
We're matching you. Yes.
Mhm.
What is the reaction to the election in France, or is it a ho hum?
Well, it's obviously there is an interest. French news at the moment is dominated largely by economics on the one hand, and New Caledonia, the colony of New Caledonia in the South Pacific, where my wife comes from, actually, which is there's unrest there. There's a group seeking independence, and seeking to deprive a large segment of the European population of the vote, of a democratic say in the future of the island. But I think there's a general antipathy there on the part of both the natives and the whites and the Europeans towards France, I think, and so that's causing quite a headache with the head people in Paris. But otherwise, no, the interest in the English election is natural, closest neighbor, and so they're watching to see whether England will go extreme left wing or just moderate left wing. I think that's the take that they have on it. They suspect it will go extreme left wing. I don't know how the British people feel about that. It's Keir Starmer is presenting himself as a moderate, but I think perhaps a wolf in sheep's clothing, and certainly the people that will be putting themselves forward, a whole batch of hundreds of new socialist MPs. What will their true political colours be? Will they be moderates, or will they be extreme left Corbynista types?
Yes.
I think we're in for quite a surprise, and so I think it's the surprise element that interests the French, the uncertainty of where Britain is going. Yeah, that's probably the best assessment I can make of how the French view the English elections, rather through curiosity than the direct.
Boris Johnson wrote he does a column in the Mail on Sunday, and he did a weekend piece in which he said he anticipates that Starmer will turn out to be the most left wing prime minister since 1947. He said that much as you said, a sheep in wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Well, it's quite possible, but I don't see it from my perspective as being of him being naturally an extremist. He will be led by his party. He will not lead the party. So if the party is populated by the rank and file is populated by extremists, he will become extremist.
Yes. Well, his deputy, of course, is has painted her colours as being rather left of left.
I think so, yeah. And so he's a man who is very easily influenced. He'll bend with the wind, and if the wind comes from the left, then he'll swing to the left. But I don't think is naturally an extreme left winger. I think he's a man without any particular strong conviction.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, as you said, it is the interpretation, really, of the word extreme or the word left. Is quite often people painted either right wing or left wing are moderates. It does take quite a lot. It takes somebody like Corbyn to be really extreme. Whether in fact Starmer will be that way, Boris is betting that he will. Boris's article sort of said, "Brace yourselves, chaps, because you're in for a rough ride." The other interesting item, I think, is you guessed that Farage should hold tough and not get involved this time around, and that's exactly what's happened.
Well, he's taken the position that instead of locking himself into one constituency by running as for MP, he is going to support Reform UK up and down the country. And I think that if you took a selection of the British papers this morning, which is easy to do online, he's in the headlines of most of them. He could well be so far the most prominent politician in Britain that his influence will be much greater by following the course he's chosen and becoming a general gadfly than being just a single MP. So it would seem that the natural reaction of the British press, he is the highest profile politician in the land at the moment. And
I would say that he's most mentioned, talked about. I think you're right. Everybody is completely bemused by the politicians that we've got, and Sunak is doing, what probably the only thing that left for the Conservatives to do, and that is to dangle goodies in front of the electorate. This morning, he's a pension rise. He's after the elderly vote because he's certainly not going to get the younger vote. But I'm looking through the papers for. Farage challenges Sunak to a debate on immigration. He's been very clever, actually, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I don't think Sunak will accept because there's no comparison between the two. Sunak is probably a nice enough guy. Starmer is probably a nice enough guy, but they're not leaders. They're not inspirational leaders. And they just follow the general, whichever way the wind is blowing, I feel, particularly Starmer, whereas Farage is a leader. And it's not a question of whether you like or dislike these people. Many people,
that's right.
Many people don't like Farage, the way he comes across sometimes. But the question is, what do you think of his ideas? And his ideas are so clear cut and so essentially necessary to put Britain back on the right track that I believe that a lot of people will listen to him, and he'll have a tremendous influence in this election, I think, Farage.
I mean, I think that actually Farage was very clever in the way that he used the European Parliament to establish the sort of politician that he is. I mean, he's pretty fearless.
Well, his logic it's difficult to argue against his logic. It's difficult to argue against the logic of Reform UK. as to being the correct medicine that Britain has to take, the correct
Right.
steps they have to take to prevent the inexorable decline of the nation, which has happened during our lifetime, yours and my
Yes,
lifetime.
absolutely.
So I do believe he will have tremendous influence, as I say, on this election, and he's chosen the correct path because obviously Labour is going to win. So he would just go down as a loser if he ran now. But when
Yes.
Labour makes an infernal mess of things, if they can make a bigger mess than the Tories, which is questionable, Tories have been pretty useless. When the whole thing descends into chaos, then Farage can ride up on his white horse and save the nation. And he's young enough to do that. He's only 60, I think. And a young 60, very dynamic 60-year-old. So, no, I think we're going to see an awful lot more of Farage in the next 10 years.
I would agree with you. And making a mess of things is, if, occasionally Labour show a little bit of sanity and make a bit of sense, and then their commitment to dogma kicks in, and they then sort of blow it and destroy any credibility that they actually build.
Well, I think that takes us back to what shape is this new Labour government going to take? There is a surprising lack of talent and leadership quality at the head of the party, in what we'll call the front bench of the party. There's no outstanding person who you can say, by golly, they're going to make some bold moves and take us in this or that direction. And so they could become the dog that's wagged by the tail being this massive influx of unknown quantity of unproven, inexperienced MPs. Hundreds of them are going to come in. We have no idea who they are. Have they been pretending to be moderates to get the nomination for the constituencies, and then will turn out to be extreme left wing? We've no idea. Will they become a collective tail, as I say, which wags the dog? That's the unknown factor. I think we're heading into a period it's very difficult to predict. And of course, the one thing is fairly clear: the Labour Party is campaigning just simply that they are not the Tories, and they have come up with no program whatsoever. They've got no hard propositions that could be picked apart and evaluated, and the public could make a decision based on them, because they haven't announced any. They don't have a policy.
They don't seem to have boosted anybody other than the Starmer and his deputy. The name Yvette Cooper came up the other day, and I'd forgotten all about her. She at one stage she was a front bencher for the Labour Party and very prominent, and suddenly has been lost in the jungle of their backbenchers.
Well, she's been discarded. She's been discarded. I mean, I think what you can do is describe Starmer as being extremely bland. I suspect Rayner is fairly doctrinaire. She's probably more comfortable with a Corbynista type of approach than. So she's likely to dominate if she survives this problem she's got with the tax people, and which seems to have gone to sleep for a while. But anyway, we'll see where that one works out. But
that cropped up on the weekend. They're gathering evidence apparently, and the police are taking it further than originally thought.
Well, I think we expect our politicians to be lily white, And if she pulled a little bit of a fast one on that council house deal, well, it just makes her human. I've got a sense of forgiveness there. I think if she is a very capable person, it would be a shame if her career was destroyed by that. She made a mistake, and I think if anything, she should own up to it and pay back the tax that she's owned. If the authorities find she's responsible, but I don't think it should put an end to her career. What I do feel is, coming back to my argument that the front bench of the Labour Party it seems to be devoid of any talent and certainly of any experience, and that guy, David Lammy, that's putting himself forward as a potential foreign secretary. I mean, I don't know whether he knows where some of the countries on the world map are. It's a bit scary, and so, as I say, it depends on the collective will of all of these unknown MPs that are going to form a pressure group, and then they themselves could be influenced by outside sources. I just wonder to what degree Jeremy Corbyn still has an influence on the Labour Party, and so we don't know where it's going to go. But it certainly will be a case of, as I say, the tail wagging the dog. I think when in government, and
yes, I made the comment this morning, Harry, that a record number of MPs have left the Conservative Party, and the media and of course the opposition are sort of playing it up as they're all abandoning Sunak and so on. But my view is that a lot of them shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
With the big majority that Boris got, that they were stuffing people into constituencies, left, right, and centre, and that a lot of the upset, breaking of ranks and getting a bit rebellious and so on. It was really that they weren't, as you have called them, committed conservatives. They were just there for the money, or because they'd been persuaded last time, and that the Conservatives should be saying a good riddance to them.
Well, I think so. I mean, the Conservative Party has shot itself in the foot. The so-called One Nation Conservatives are really socialists, to my mind, and they've lost their conservative credentials. The Parliamentary Conservative Party, that is, not the Conservative Party throughout the land. And I'm surprised and to a degree disappointed that the Conservative masses who think in those terms don't swing their support behind reform. Reform is a truly conservative party. It's not an extreme right-wing party. It's a conservative party. The current Parliamentary Conservative Party is not. So I don't know. It's if you try to look at the long-term interests of Britain, you almost come to the conclusion that it would be better if the current Parliamentary Conservative Party got wiped out. So that a proper right-wing opposition or right-wing party could put forward its views and earn, or perhaps not earn, the vote of the people. It would be a shame if the Conservative Party, as it stands in Parliament at the moment, survived sufficiently to build its way back, because it built its way back on the same
principles. Yes, that's right. I rather think that listening to Sunak in his chats, looking at what he's doing and so on and so forth, is I think that there are a number of things which he couldn't possibly deliver. And that's a man who is making promises that he's saying to himself, that's all right, I can say anything. I don't have to keep these, or I won't have to keep them.
Well, that's true. I think he's pretty safe in making promises at this stage, because he'll be history fairly soon. I think the election is going to be closer than we first thought. I think the polls have got it wrong. Certainly, Labour will win, but not by the margin that people predict.
Yeah,
I think there'll be a tremendous abstention for a start, and which will make Labour look like it's a major winner, but in fact they will just capture their vote, and a lot of people won't turn out to vote for the Conservatives. That's all. So I think you're right in saying that Sunak can make promises, but I don't know. It's so disappointing, really, because many of the Conservative principles have been discarded by the Conservative Party. So they've invited this defeat upon themselves. As I say, it's probably a good thing for the nation in the long term if they get chased out and a whole new party, a right-wing party, takes its place.
Nice.
And the
Yes.
best vehicle for that at the moment appears to be Reform UK. I don't question any of the principles of their policy, Reform UK. I think they're absolutely on the right track. I do not see them as being extreme. I see them putting forward the correct remedy to put the nation back on track. But, and as I say, with Farage could have made a difference if he'd thrown his hat in the ring this time. But perhaps their time is not yet come. The nation has got to sink even lower under the doctrinaire nature of the upcoming socialist government before we can, get save it from total oblivion. So I think we've got to think a little bit further first. Yeah.
Harry, one of the things that worries me is on either side, really, but particularly on the Conservative side, because they've gone through it, and that is that with the number of people they've got to recruit to run for office, is that they are going to get the same sort of a bunch of losers again, and that whether they win or lose, is that we will have what started with Theresa May, and that is that the backbenchers started to run the government, and of course that was absolute disaster. Now, do you think that either party have got enough discipline in place so that they will be able to call the whip 1, 2, or 3, and be able to have enough discipline to have sensible and sane government?
I think you make a very good point there. There seems to be a lack of discipline, effectively, in both parties, notably in the Conservative Party, which is split up into factions. And they, even at this late stage in the game, they start to fight amongst themselves. We get the Prime Minister proposing the return of national service, and within 24 hours, Baker, I think it's Baker, contradicting him. I mean, you can't run a ship with the crew arguing with the captain all the time. So there seems to be very little discipline. So we need more control in both parties to make sure that there's a united response to the challenges that they face. The problem, I feel, again, comes back to what kind of person will be selected in the constituencies. Now, I'm applying that thought this time to the Conservative Party. There are 100 or so conservatives standing down that will not run again, what is the selection process for their replacements? We know technically how it works. People put their names forward and they go before, they're examined, they're vetted, and they're controlled. But these are likely to be people with, again, no parliamentary experience, and perhaps not with any particular strong views. So if the selection process reflects the current wishy-washy nature of the Conservative Party, the parliamentary Conservative Party, then you're going to get a wishy-washy selection of people there. The unknown factors in the future governments, and let's say it's a two-term governance, probably 10 years we're going to sink even lower, then it all depends on the quality of the people coming in. But the selection process determines that quality. So they maybe will discard people with true conservative values and be going for one nation conservative type philosophy.
Yes. I mean, it depends if I mean, part of the problem this last time, I think, is because we were nominating and electing MPs on what I call ratios.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, yes, you're a very good Conservative candidate, etc., but we are not going to put you forward because we need somebody who is black in that constituency, or we need somebody who's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
or we need somebody who's gay. In other words, we're trying to balance things out across. That's totally the wrong way to go about selecting a strong party.
Absolutely, yeah. And if we look where many of the nation's leaders have come from, they tend to come from a high proportion of leading politicians, and a very high proportion, let's say, of the judiciary come from public school origin still. And so they're trying to do away with public schools. They're starting by preparatory schools, fee-paying schools. They're going to be taxed out of existence at the very start of the socialist control reign. And so I don't know. Is the educational system going to be up to producing the caliber of person that we need to run the nation? That's worth dissecting a little bit more closely, of course, because with the loss of many of these fee-paying schools, the state system is totally incapable of absorbing that number of pupils. And if you expanded the state system, the cost of doing that is several times more than the additional VAT that the government would get in from imposing additional taxes on private schools. So it's a symbolic act. Maybe that's a little bit of a hint as to the doctrinaire nature of Keir Starmer's thinking. Maybe he's not as bland as I thought he was. Maybe he is more left wing than we would think, unless somebody else is influencing him to go down that route.
Well, it has been suggested that that he is the face of common sense, because that's what we want. But that common sense lacks strength.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know that common sense lacks strength. I think that he's a person who is easily influenced. We see how he changes his mind on any issue according to the last person he's talked to. No, I think it's a signal, though, this question of applying VAT to fee-paying schools. They'll bring in, I think, about £1.5 billion, but it'll cost them 3 or 4 times that amount to create the places which do not exist in the state school system at the moment.
Yes.
They
I
create
mean,
to absorb them.
a story in the weekend paper that already that there is a movement of people who would normally send their children to fee-paying schools, private schools, whatever we want to call them, and that the exodus from that sector into the state sector has already begun. And if
It's
it's
already
already begun before he's there, then there is going to be quite a flood, and that is going to absorb any excess money that they may get in.
Well, it's even worse than that. The average hit that the family would take with their kids if you just got one child, if you've got a couple of kids in a fee-paying school, you're looking at another 10, 15,000 pounds a year that you've got to get out of your back pocket. And those people who are marginal, they were already paying about 30,000 pounds, I would think, for private school tuition fees. So it's beyond them. So they've already started that exodus. I believe about 30% of the private school population is under threat at the moment. And these people are seeking to get their kids into state schools. And the state schools already have waiting lists. In the Newcastle area, for instance, they've categorically said there is no space whatsoever to absorb previously fee-paying school students. So what are those kids going to do? They'll get no education at all.
Yes,
they'll be, just left hanging there. So there's going to be a period of time when these children are not getting properly educated. You can't just create a school overnight. A school building program would take a number of years to complete. The disruption to the educational system is monstrous, is enormous, but then again, do our leaders of either side want a highly educated constituents? I suppose not. The elite of this world would like to have a two-tier system, like the bees, the worker bees, and the drones. I mean, that'd be much easier to control. That takes us down the immigration line. It takes us down all sorts of philosophies. That do we want to have an educated public? They could be dangerous, considering the actual poor quality of our leaders. They could find themselves outclassed if they got too many smart people, nipping at their heels. So I don't know. Is it a planned sabotage of the educational system? One can suspect.
I suspect that there may be a more element of truth in that than appears on the surface, Harry. Very interesting that what was it, the 1948 Educational Act that gave elite grammar school education to everybody who could qualify, and that since then is that the powers that be have tried very hard to backtrack on it one way or another, and I think that you're absolutely right that there is a concealed desire on behalf of our leaders to make sure that nobody that's not approved gets higher than they want them to be.
Exactly.
The element of control. Yeah.
We've mentioned the grammar school system. Well, there's a very strong movement underway at the moment to dismantle the grammar school system, because even that is seen as elitist, whereas it gave the opportunity to everybody, working class students, everybody, to exploit their intellectual potential, and I think it was the backbone of British education, certainly post-war education in Britain. And but there's a move to dismantle that. Is it to equalize everybody by the lowest common denominator, or is it simply a philosophical or ideological opposition to elitism? So no wonder they're against public and fee-paying schools. If they're against grammar schools, they just want everybody to and take the incredible rise in red brick universities. We've now got 180, 190 universities in Britain producing second-rate education, third-rate education in some cases, in subjects which the nation absolutely doesn't need.
Yes.
So we've devalued it. Tony Blair pushed the idea that at least 50% of students should get to university degree level. No, a terrible mistake. You need a segmented society to meet the different needs. We need more people in apprenticeships who could express their natural talents in a way more successfully and more to their own financial and career benefit in the long term, instead of being told that they've got to become third-rate lawyers or
yeah. I mean, the whole thing is a mess. There's no question. It's an absolute mess. And I don't think either of these two parties that are, the major combatants in this election have any intention whatsoever of fighting against the pricks, as it were. Is that they simply like that sort of trend.
Well, it's crazy because if you're a mum and dad and you've made a little bit of progress in life and you've worked hard and you've got a few pennies together and you've got a couple of kids and you want your kids to do better than you did, and you have that generational ambition for the future of your family, surely you want your kids to succeed, and you don't want them to be held back, and as I said earlier, down to the lowest possible common denominator, so that everybody becomes equal. I think it's a natural instinct of people to want to succeed. There's a natural instinct in some people to be lazy, and the two are not mutually exclusive, because very often very clever people are lazy. So they need a boot in the backside to get them moving ahead. But then again, discipline in modern society has gone by the boards as well.
That's right. Liza has arrived. Harry, I'm going to invite her to, because she likes talking to you and you like talking to her. Yeah. Liza, where are you?
I'll be there in a second.
She'll be there in a second.
Oh, she's making herself more beautiful. I mean, if that is possible. Yeah. So, no, I don't think that our politicians are listening to the people. They tend to be telling the people what they should think, whereas the people should be really insisting that the politicians reflect their needs, their views, their hopes,
absolutely.
And there's a link been lost between the trust has been lost. I think politicians have lost the trust of the people to a large degree.
Harry, you're absolutely right. There is little confidence now in our politicians. There is a gulf there, and generally speaking, I look at the way I look at politicians. I mean, I'll always moan and have a go at them, but basically, I think, yes, we've got men of some considerable ability, but I actually am looking at both ranks at the moment, and I cannot see where that ability is. I really can't.
Well, no, we're not persuading the top elements of society to go into politics. We've got very clever people around that are doing well in business or doing well in academia or what have you, and very few of them we only seem to get second raters that go into politics.
Absolutely, yeah.
And with no strong convictions and no as I say, essential qualities of charisma, of leadership, of getting people to follow them. I wouldn't follow any of these people. Probably nice enough guys, great to go out and have a beer with, but I don't know. They're not leaders. They're not leaders.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are not leaders.
No.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. I mean, to be quite honest with you, we've been talking about Nigel Farage. Out of everything, he is the only politician that I see that has any leadership qualities whatsoever.
I think you're right, and it in this modern world, we tend to view our politicians a little bit like film stars. You say, "Oh, well, I like him," or "Isn't he this or that?" But in point of fact, we should be listening to what they're saying. I think Farage is by far the most influential politician and political thinker on the stage at the moment. We haven't heard the last of him, and it's going to sit this one out because it's a foregone conclusion. But when he comes back into the front line of the fray, I think we've got a force to be reckoned with.
Now, here we have another influential lady who can be very forceful. And who actually, in a funny sort of way, is enjoying some considerable success because she's been having a go at the World Health Organization and the I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find her name here. Oh, there we are.
It's lies.
There we go.
You've been having a go at the WHO, have you, Lisa?
One of my very favorite subjects, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're absolutely terrible and very frightening people. The World Health Organization. But this WHO lot, they're all affiliated, aren't they? You know? Of course, they're coming here. Well, not coming here. They're not coming to Lewis now. They're coming to Geneva the end of the month, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
another go.
It's become a political organization, I think, the WHO. There's a tremendous influence from totalitarian quarters, China, for instance. And I don't know that you probably, it's a good thing to have a World Health Organization, but the second it becomes dominated by one philosophy, one ideology, or one particular national ambition, then no, it simply becomes an instrument that impedes the progress of international health care. I don't know. I can't say that I'm an expert at all in that field, but going by what we read, it seems to have an influence beyond the necessary technical aspect of their work. I mean, the family doctor, instead of being free to actually work in partnership with the patient to see what the problem is, has to follow so many rules and regulations that his approach is, if something goes wrong, he could actually become liable in the end. You've lost that patient doctor client patient relationship. Well, the same thing as I think is happening at the higher level between the WHO and the medical profession in general. There's so
Well, I
many
think they're
rules,
all affiliates.
so many rules and
I
regulations
think
that they follow that
yeah.
that the actual personal
Well,
care aspect is gone.
Well, Harry, don't. Well, we've lost our family doctor. You know, the chap that used to come out in the middle of the night, and the person that gave birth to me, and all that. They were wonderful people, and we did very, very well by them. And then the National Health took over, which seemed to be a good idea, but didn't work out that way because it was dominated. But you see, it's all to do, Harry, with this world takeover. They want to take over the entire world. Now, this is common knowledge now, this new world order, where we will be dictated to by a handful of people in every aspect of our lives, from freedom of speech to health to survival. I don't think the world has ever really gone through such a terrifying phase. It's even worse than the last World War, but they're emulating all the negativity of the last World War, or exactly the same, doing away with people who can't cut the mustard and happen to be elderly. You're a strain, you're a useless eater, so you've got to go. And you see, since the internet, they get these messages across very, very easily. But the people now, with the advent of the internet, they are wising up. So they have now censored the internet in all sorts of countries, where it becomes just like you're at the mercy of the BBC.
Well,
Tell you what they want.
The internet is a blessing and a curse at the same time, just as many of the technical developments in history have been. And I'm sure would agree on that one. But I buy your point entirely. You get something like the NHS in Britain, and it has become all powerful, and it has actually seems to have forgotten its primary mission, which is to help cure people, to deal with people's health problems, and it has become a philosophical organization where they're more worried about the pronouns that with which to address the patient than whether the patient has got terminal cancer.
Yes.
It's become an ideological, well, we can use the word woke organization, but much more so than that. They've taken upon themselves a role that is not particularly theirs to assume, and they've. And the people who are running the show get these incredible salaries, and as I say, the frontline nurses and doctors who are doing a wonderful job are prevented from doing what they should in a way. It almost becomes a self defeating exercise. But anyway, that's the vision or the view we have of the NHS, and I think the WHO is seeking to impose that kind of a regime on health worldwide. So if it's going to become simply a super NHS, then it's a bad thing. I'd like to know what your particular.
Well, I think it's even more dangerous, Harry, than the National Health. Even much more dangerous. I mean, look, they're coming to Davos this end of this month to have another go, aren't they? Now, the information that I can get off of the internet is they're finished. Really, they are finished. That I do not believe. I'm sorry. They're too cunning, too crafty, and the fact that our governments, I mean, the two parties, are very strong members of the WHO and the World Economic Forum, which are affiliated. I mean, they're going to back them to the hilt. Now, they want this bill passed and they want it signed worldwide. Now, several countries in Europe have said, on your bike, no way. Good for them. England hasn't said that. We allowed them in years ago, and our king allowed them to come in and ride roughshod over us. Allowed them to take over the education of our children, sexualization, these 15-minute cities that are going to happen. You know, they haven't found it easy, so there's a little bit of stalling, but they're still very well entrenched.
Well,
And
if these organizations have come into being because they reflected the necessary expertise to further the common good, then we are supposed to listen to them as experts. And we see it in all forms of life. For instance,
yes,
probably one of the most influential entities which governs life in Britain is the Office of Budget Responsibility, the OBR. It can make or break governments. Well, it should be the other way around. The removal of the Bank of England from to make it independent gives it a power that it shouldn't necessarily have. The WHO falls into that category. The climate control, the IPCC, which transformed into the GIEC, they gave themselves added the word expert into the title. So therefore, we, the common people, have got to follow the edicts of not our politicians, not our elected representatives, but of these bureaucratic bodies who decide which way we should go. Now, in those terms, the NHS, the WHO, the OBR, all of these groups have got far more power than they should have. We need their collective expertise. It's a good thing in sharing knowledge internationally or nationally, any way you like, so we don't hopefully avoid making mistakes that other parts of society have made. But we shouldn't give them too much power. And what we've done is we've divested the role of government into unofficial, official bodies like quangos, whatever they call them. And so the people who govern us have got less and less power. Even the
Harry, educate me, will you? What exactly is a quango?
Well, a quango is where they've devolved. It's a body. The government has given devolved powers to a particular group to administer part of public policy. And again, we get back to one of my favorite expressions, the tail wagging the dog. And so these quangos, because they exist, they're given a sense of independence and they can determine the direction the government can take instead of the government using them as a think tank to get the best advice they can get. So we have got devolved responsibility. And part of that is intentional because if they make mistakes, they can blame it on somebody else, saying, well, it wasn't us, that we were doing what the so-called experts told us to do. But once the experts become so powerful, as I say, in the climate change world, they can dictate internationally what government should do about they choose the actual vernacular, the largest single element being the word global warming. Well, I
The,
mean,
the global warming is the biggest hoax, along with COVID.
of course it has. Global warming, the world has warmed and cooled and warmed and cooled since time began. And so
And human beings have very little to do with that.
that we don't know. We really don't know, because there's no question you can measure the output of CO2 or sulfur emissions or what have you, and we can say that human activity is contributing so much, but we don't know how much is being produced by nature in cyclical form. So until we have how much is being produced naturally, we can't determine what the component our contribution is.
But Harry, DARPA now in Alaska, it has the biggest machine. It's like a microwave. I mean, they are controlling the weather and have been doing so for a long time now.
Well, I don't know anything about that, but
Please follow through on that. It's terribly important, Harry.
what worries me as much about climate change is the question that we're going to do away with the combustion engine for automobiles and replace it with the electric car, which it's beginning to show that it's going to produce more CO2 doing that than it was with a refined combustion engine motor car. We're going to close the North Sea oil fields and buy our oil in from foreign countries which are generating far more CO2 to produce that oil and far more CO2 to bring it to us at twice the price, and lose 200,000 jobs in the process. So, I mean, it's total nonsense.
Well, colossal big business, and to diminish Britain as much as they possibly can to absorb us into this new world order.
Mm-hmm.
A courtesy of Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Bill and Melinda Gates organization, which have been poisoning so many people with their jolly jabs all over the world for so many years now, and continue to do so. I don't think that should be allowed. I don't know about you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there again, you see, it's good and bad. Some of the work that the Gates organization did in Africa, fighting tuberculosis and other illnesses, has been very good. But once they become too powerful and they move into areas which are beyond their remit, then it becomes very, very dangerous. So
I mean, Gates is trying to block out the sun. And he has permission to try and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And he owns more land with his, funny food and that he's planting, so that we can eat bugs rather than proper vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we should eat animals, but that is my opinion. Other people would disagree with me, but choice should still be there. But even if we did stop eating animals, we could live on proper vegetation if it was grown, but not what he's growing.
Yes, I see where you're coming from on that one.
He is making it now law that the world has to use his seeds. You have to plant his seeds. And
well, where is this coming? Where is this coming from? Is it coming from international bodies, or is it coming from a group of people who are so individually powerful that in their small collectivity they can influence world behavior? I mean, take somebody like Elon Musk, not just with the Tesla motor car, but the role that Elon Musk as a person can play with his satellite organization can determine the outcome of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Is that rather a lot of power to be in the hands of one man? If he withdraws that, the ability of the Ukrainian military to use the his satellite system, Starlink system, it could totally alter the balance on the battlefield. I mean, the individual power that some of these people have, and if they get together in groups, as you've mentioned yourself before, and in Davos in Switzerland, they can control the world. So it makes some of the old Bond films look as if they were actually right on track in forecasting the future of the planet. So, but again, has it not always been thus? Is that not part of the human story? We've always had inordinate power in the hands of very few people, and if it's been used for the common good, then fine. If it's been used to disadvantage the population, then it's dangerous. I don't know. It depends.
Well, I get we're going through a very, very frightening period, Harry, and I'm sure we agree on that with these organizations that all seem to be affiliated together, determined to take over this new world order. And, you know, they're like Japanese knotweed. I mean, they're just everywhere with these common purpose people that follow them, that they have been pulling into their web for the last 20 years, promising them world leadership. Now, you will be one of the young world leaders if you follow us and do as you're told. And that appeals to a lot of people. Of course, that won't happen because once the cult, and that's what it is, this is a cult of people, have used those people, they will be discarded totally. They will not be needed when they have this takeover. So, you know, their main object is Bill Gates plus his cronies is to depopulate the world. It says too many people on the planet. And then he says, oh, take my injections and you will live forever. Doesn't work like that, Harry. Doesn't work like that at all. And people are very stupid that they don't dig in and say, wow, what is this guy? You know, I mean, they just follow their leader like sheep. And, you know, stupid people are very, very dangerous people, terribly dangerous, because they are allowing these people to become more and more powerful. Elon Musk now is, oh, yes, he's into free speech and he's taken over. Now he's X, yes? Elon Musk is a workman, like all these other people who want to take over. There are people that you and I don't see, and they've no intention of being seen or being treated, that control Elon Musk, Gates, and other people. Really. And it's been happening for a long, long time. And any time these people all look like coming over to our side, well, you know, you don't get that contract or you don't get that, or my God, he died at 40 years of age. Incredible.
Well, I see what you mean by that. The question of a privileged elite dominating the world has almost been a problem that we've faced since time began. Well, not since time began, since human existence began. But remember, the period of time that human beings are on this earth is just a few seconds in the history of the world. We appeared and we'll disappear fairly soon.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
take our place. So we're only talking about a few seconds in that human life has existed, that we've been so-called the dominant species on the planet, and then somebody else or something else will take over. or
The
the
only
planet?
thing is that you and I, Harry, we are vintage people. We're older people, and we have lived through quite a few wars, especially the last World War, and everything is shaping up because the people who won the last World War, it wasn't us. And this takeover has been planned ever since 1946 by these people that we don't see. It's been planned for a long, long time. The only thing is, look, several other guys have tried to take over the world, haven't they? And they haven't succeeded. Like,
But that's good news. That's good news then, isn't
that's
it?
very good news because Napoleon had a go. Oh dear, Julius Caesar had a go. Alexander the Great had a go, and they all failed. So
no, we should take encouragement from that then, shouldn't we?
I really do take encouragement from that, and I don't know if I'm being naive or not, but I still happen to have faith in the British people. I think somewhere down the line, I mean, look, we're lazy, and our laziness survived the Romans because we made terrible slaves. I mean, there's no good taking us back to fight in the arenas because we said, no, mate, we don't want a lot of that, do we? And we managed to survive. I think it's something about island people. But and I'm pretty sure we will survive, but it could take 300 years if this lot get in.
But do you feel the British people still exist in the context of what you and I perceive as being British?
Yes, I do. I still think there's enough of us to remember. If people like you and I keep spreading the word, which is what we're here for, and we have to do it until we die. We mustn't let go of this banner that we have, because the banner is called experience.
But the future belongs to the younger people, and we can seek to influence the direction our nation takes or the world takes. But I just wondered. You mentioned the war there. How many young people in Britain would defend their nation now? Would pick up their trusty musket and walk off?
And good for them. And why should they? Why should they go to war? Why should anybody go to war? I tell you something. I've said this before, and indulge me by listening to this, please, Harry. A woman gives birth in agony to a child, right? She raises that child. If necessary, she'll go out and whore for it to raise it. She teaches it right from wrong. You do this, you don't do that. You be kind. And then when he's 18, she sticks a gun in his hand and says, go over there and kill someone you don't know. This thing is called war. And the person that goes over there to fight these wars, they've had no quarrel with these people. They've just been told to go and kill by governments who want to make a lot of money.
That is in the case of the aggressor. But if you're defending your nation against the aggressor, do you believe there should be a collective will to defend yourself, and which involves getting involved in?
If someone comes and breaks my door down, I will defend myself. But I'm not going to go out in the street with some sort of weapon, looking for trouble, attracting.
But
if someone comes into my home, no, I will defend myself to the death.
But if your home is your nation, would you defend your nation?
No, I would not defend my nation at all.
You're basically a pacifist in that sense, are you?
I don't know these names, pacifist. What I don't go by. I just go from what I've seen. And you see, as soon as they start saying turn in all your guns. Guns are now banned. You know, you mustn't have them unless you've got a very special license. And Baba, and your weapons, you know very well that there's going to be a takeover, because that's exactly what happened in Germany. Now, when the Nazis came in the middle of the night and dragged people out of their beds and killed them and took them off to the camps, if they'd had some weapon there to defend themselves, they wouldn't have found it quite so easy. And of course, Germany knew that. Any country that is planning to control the people, they take away our defenses. So you know what is going to happen. And these young chaps that they're bringing into this country today by the shiploads practically. Oh, we're going to stop all that. No, they're not, because it's calculated. These people are being financed by George Soros to come over here and take over our country. That's what they've been. And they've already been trained by...
My question is, Britain, just the Britain that you and I idealistically remember, does it still exist?
No, I don't know, but there are enough people like you and I. I mean, you know, we sit here and talk and try and get a few messages over.
Mm-hmm.
We're not alone, you know. There are an awful lot of people out there. Most of them have been banned. They're not allowed on radio or television or the internet. They've taken them off. Magnificent people like Dr. Vernon Coleman, David Icke, the champion. I mean, you know, there are people that that are out there trying. It's not just you and I here.
But we are now in the minority, and a new thought groupthink is now does no longer subscribe to the values that we have. Is our time passed?
No, it hasn't. Our time hasn't passed, Harry, because we're here. We're still here.
Now, today is taking a slightly different format, simply because yesterday was a holiday, and we're sort of backed up. So we have Kit Wood, who, Harry, I'm going to keep you here, and Liza also is very eager to about education. But you had some thoughts on education, and Kit actually is very articulate when it comes to the broad picture of education. So I'm inviting Kit in to do his slot in a general discussion. So Harry, if we can just switch emphasis for a little while.
Are you asking us to shut up?
No, I'm asking you to get to switch the topic a little.
Hello, how are you?
I don't wish to be asked to do something that's impossible.
Oh, are we that bad? Are we really that bad? Oh, dear. Poor Keith. What he has to put up with.
Well, if this is an opportunity to talk about the philosophy of education, I think that's wonderful. I mean, the technical side, whether it's working as it should, whether it is preparing today's youth for the role that will make society better, that's another question. What should we be teaching our children? Should it be a value education? Should it be a technical education? Should it be one that lends itself to their...
I think it would be nice if we taught them how to read and write.
And indeed it would.
Arithmetic. That's really all that's necessary, you know, because if you can read, you can get your own education.
Well, reading and writing is a very relative thing because What
And
was
these
it?
children come out and they pay an awful lot for their education, you know, to go on to these universities and things, and they come out and they can't count to 10 without a computer. I mean,
Well,
it's not
how
all.
how long have people been able to read and write? We're told that the statistics in the year 1800 that about 10% of the people could read and write. Were they less happy before?
Right, kids, get involved.
Absolutely.
You got two very powerful orators here, so shout them down.
Not at all. I'm inclined to agree that literacy, particularly, maybe not numeracy, is essential, and it's rather difficult for young people to acquire without a little bit of guidance. I think it's actually one of the very few areas in the way our education system is set up that actually is rather important, and it's about the only justification I have for not being chucked straight out of my job, because we do need to teach people to read and write. Shockingly, though, there are still about 6% of the UK population who are to a certain degree illiterate.
Absolutely. And there are some people who are dyslexic and have grave trouble reading.
There's been tremendous progress in that respect, in the way people can be given the strategies to deal with that and to acquire literacy. I wonder if I could throw in a couple of controversial theories, so
please do.
Can shoot them down. I think it's fair that as a Johnny come lately, I'm the one to be shot down.
Why should
you
we?
Don't mind my saying so.
Why should we shoot you down?
Right.
Why?
Here's the theory of me about education, which proves that I should be Secretary of State. We patronise children. We patronise people of all ages. We particularly patronise children because of their age and because we can. And I think it's shameful. I think that we need to involve them more, and I think we need to consult. It needs to be more consultative. We, of course, it isn't an age thing entirely. We patronise older people. We patronise people of all ages whom we feel to have some inferiority to our own. But I think that mindset must end. Now, quite clearly, a child can't learn to read and write without guidance. A 27-year-old qualified doctor can't perform the most intricate kind of brain surgery without being helped to do so. But you can do that on the basis of, I have something to share with you which will help you, not you are inferior to me and I'm going to make you better through some sort of gracious grant of my generosity. So that's precept one. Have either of you got any thoughts about that? You think there's a place for patronising people?
What does patronising mean exactly?
For the second year running, my New Year's resolution as a teacher, and generally, it was to avoid sarcasm. In fact, there was a school in Nottingham where the head was completely and utterly crucified in the press and his parent body, because he said teachers should not be sarcastic to children. I think he had a point, actually. Sarcasm is rather humiliating, and I think it says more about the in circumstances like that. Obviously, if somebody competent has made a clot up, then I think there's room for it as a rich vein of humour. But being sarcastic as a weapon to humiliate and belittle is, I think, something we should be much more guarded with.
Well, I think I think it's absolutely disgraceful.
But it happens all the time. It's very tempting to be in a position where one is in a natural position of authority vis-a-vis the potential victim.
Harry, have you any thoughts?
Well, I was, again, like Lisa, I was trying to think of the modern interpretation of the word patronizing, the and put it into the context of patronizing children. Would you mean that to give them a status that they should not have at that stage in their life, to make them feel more important than they really are, in the hope of building a sense of independence, of individuality? Or should they know that their future can only come from being shaped by necessary parameters, discipline being one of them, love being another, and so that at the time when they can be molded into future adults who can contribute to society, because if you patronize a child, it's like almost suggesting it can do no wrong. Oh, my little darling, you're. I'm trying to going down the same line as Lisa to try and figure out what we mean by the word patronizing in the context of children, and therefore in the context of education, because education is supposedly there to shape children and adults eventually into becoming fully fledged citizens and being part and a useful part of society. That we get into the theory of what is education for, and then offshoot philosophies of nothing more dangerous than being knowledgeable but not having enough knowledge, because it I don't know, should children be seen and not heard? No. I mean, should they learn to participate in from an early age in family life, in school life, and what have you? Yes, but within the limits that they call out for themselves. If you don't have any rules in society, you have chaos, and the time to shape future adults is when they're young. They're more pliable, I would have thought. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to get more into the patronizing concept as to what is meant by that with children. How do you build a structure into a young person's life? And education is probably one of the key elements. The family probably is as big as anything. School. There used to be pillars like the church. Then the notions into public service, what have you. I don't know. How do we shape human beings, and what role does education have in that function? These are questions that I'm asking myself instead of necessarily expecting that you can provide answers.
I have to know when to say play nights. I don't have any children, so I am really not qualified to have too much input on something like the education of children. I can only go by myself. I was terribly lucky to have lovely parents, good upbringing, and the whole thing. I didn't like school. I preferred to stay at home with my mother and do nice things because I had to go eventually. But my mother taught me a great deal, reading me stories and spelling and things like that. And then when I went to school, it was a different form of teaching. I I'd had a tremendous thirst for knowledge and to learn, but I couldn't learn in a school. I wanted an individual teacher. And I could have had that because my dear father, would give me anything and he would have hired a tutor. He did have the finance to do that. But my sister, who was 9 years older than me and kind of ruled the roost there a little bit, said, no, she's got to go to school because she's got to learn how to mix with other children and blah, blah, blah. No, she cannot have a teacher. So she put the block on that for me. But as you're speaking, I can't answer these questions. I'm sorry. I'm just not having children. I'm not equipped to give an opinion on this. I just think it's a shame that they don't come out with basic arithmetic. We had to stand up in school, I remember, and say our tables. Do they do that anymore?
Yes, some do.
They do. I mean, it was terribly boring, but we did learn, didn't we? Repetition. You know? Go on, please, please.
Well, yes, Kit.
You see, a point that you made, Harry, which is that children, young people are at the stage at which their minds are admittedly at their most malleable. Society will want them to be moulded in a good way if we're to have any influence on the moulding process. Of course we will. But the structures of a supportive family and a good school, which is communicative with the young people, are available for most, but by no means all. But I don't think it ends at the final exit from the school gate. The point is that we all crave structure in our lives, whether it be, I don't know, our enthusiasm for the work of the committee of our golf club, or for the for being an active participant in a political party, or in a faith group, or whatever it might be, or simply, taking the dog out begging. I think we all need those structures in our life, and if we don't have the good fortune to have them available, I think we are very good at finding our own associations. And I don't think children are any different from that. Children who are homeschooled are very often not lonely. They very often find society with other people of all ages and so on. We are a very sociable species. Another point, to see if I can clarify what I meant by patronising. Which of you said, oh, there, my darling, you can do no wrong. Now, that's a very good example of patronising behaviour, because actually it's patronising to a child who hasn't formed the capacity to make a judgment. It's patronising not to point it out to them. It's not only patronising, it's downright dangerous to not to point out to a 3-year-old the risks of darting across a road. Similarly, it's patronising not to point things out to older people who might benefit from learning things. I don't think there's an age cut-off. I don't think it's right to say we should particularly give children structure or encourage them to seek structure in their lives, any more so than people of any other age. We all know that children's minds develop, but we're not like beetles. We don't have distinct stages in our lives. Any person of 13 will differ from her or his fellow of the same age. Any person of 90 will differ from her or his fellow of the same age. It's very conducive to a feeling of superiority to imagine that there are stages in development that are hard and fast. Of course, there are such things. I'm just trying to argue for age blindness wherever possible, just with the exception of not letting a 3-year-old rush across the road under a 28 bus. So that was one thing.
What do you think of this? Fills me with absolute horror.
Right.
This sexualization of very young children that is coming into schools today. It's very prevalent in Wales, I believe, but it's all over that was courtesy of the WHO. They brought that in. What are your views on that?
By sexualization, do you mean discussion of gender and such matters as
teaching children how to masturbate?
Yes. There are a number of arguments about what is the appropriate age at which to teach sex education. One theory is that actually about 8 or 9 is probably the best age to teach that. The reason being that because they haven't yet reached puberty, they don't have the emotional complication. They can learn about it, as it were, dispassionately. Sexualization, though, I find very worrying. And it's a particular problem with young girls who are frequently introduced to the idea that there are role models, that they should dress, act, behave, think even, and develop their tastes in particular directions, which aim at some sort of sexualized, perfect young woman. I think that's very risky. And I think that does go on too often. That does not come from schools, to be fair. Sex education does. I feel that it should, but that it needs to be very sensitively handled. An area I haven't managed to iron out in my own thoughts is the extent to which and the method by which teaching about gender identity should be done. I think that's a very sensitive area. I think more research needs to be done. And that is difficult. But no, I agree with you that sexualization in the sense of very young children being permitted or even encouraged to behave in a sexualized way is a deeply worrying.
Petrified, I would say.
Yeah.
But I blame the women, the mothers. I don't have any children, but they're out. Oh, you can't do that, can't watch me. And if that is done en masse, then they would have to stop that terrible nonsense. But, oh, well, if I take him or her home, I'm going to lose my job because I haven't got anyone to take care of him and blah, blah, blah. And that is an excuse. No. Women they're not taking their responsibilities. They're not taking any responsibility at all, as far as I can gather, because they're allowing these schools to go on teaching that.
Yes.
I'm appalled that women don't stand up to these monsters that are out there today telling us what to do and what not to do. And taking their babies down for these shots. Oh, don't get me on that. No. Not a fan of ladies today.
Well, traditionally, there's always been a healthy competition between the sexes, between men and women. The question is is it a desire to dominate? I'm reminded of the story of the guy who says that he understands. So there's always a conflict between husbands and wives as to who is right and who is wrong. And he said, I don't have that problem. He said, I've been very lucky. I've married a woman who was always right. So this conflict exists since time immemorial. And it's not just between the sexes, it's between groups, individuals.
There are some magnificent women out there today that have risked so much, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding these injections and the hospitals and that, and they've been cut down like the men.
Mm-hmm.
You don't work, you don't have this, you don't have that. And they said, well, then I will go without. These are magnificent. creatures. They really are. They don't get the publicity, of course, that they should have. They're not allowed on BBC or anything on the internet that's meaningful. They're cut down like the men are. But I just feel that with this sexualization that's going on and little children changing their sex, and that women should make much bigger stand.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. It should have been cut right at the very beginning. Should all have stood up and said, no, mate, sorry, no way, no.
Well, it seems that the movement to establish the rights of women has been superseded by all sorts of strange special interest groups who want to impose the rights of a variation of sexes. The government in France put out a booklet which talked about the needs of 60 different categories of people who self-identifying sexual categories. And the book came out and had to be withdrawn immediately because in the time of the printing, the number of sexual identifications had increased to over 100. So the book was already out of date at 60. But if you come from a world that Lisa and I come from, where you believe there are only two sexes, biological sexes, we live in a very strange environment now, and if that we have difficulty getting our minds around it, and if they're trying to impose that environment on children as young as 4, then gosh, I think it's a dangerous world that we're living in. And,
absolutely.
And
as for this woman's liberation, that was encouraged by governments.
Mm-hmm.
They encouraged that. They really did, because they said they want to go out and work. Let them do it. Then we can tax 2 people rather than 1.
Well, I think it goes beyond tax. I think it was a need for women to participate equally in society, and part of society being work life, part of society being the joint responsibility for raising children,
but I think the woman that stays home, I mean, she has a place in society, doesn't she?
I believe in the equality of women very strongly.
Yeah, but I mean,
you took the cap off that with your first question. You had a second.
Am I allowed a second?
Oh,
yes.
yeah, I'm
Right.
sorry.
No,
Aren't we
it's
naughty,
perfectly
Harry? We've been dominating.
Right. This isn't particularly about education, but it's about all ages. There's a proposal which I believe both major parties are prepared to steer through, to ban smoking progressively as current cohort of teenagers age, such that somebody aged about 14 now will never be able to buy tobacco products. I'm rather in favour of that. And I wondered if we could do something similar, or apart from the fact that it gives great, well, rather humorous scope for political cartoonists in the far future, distant future, to say, to have a tobacconist asking a 90-year-old for his ID because he doesn't look old enough to. The idea that smartphones and laptops and things should come under the same sort of ban. That maybe somebody who hasn't had an opportunity to use it, let's say a person aged 6, will never be able to buy a smartphone, never be able to use a laptop. I think personally, I feel that would be an enormous improvement for the society of our heritors. What do you think about that?
Also, it would be better for their health too.
Exactly.
I mean, little children, sleep with these phones at the side. I mean, the radiation is causing brain cancers and all sorts of terrible, dreadful things. I think a child should be given one of those phones at a responsible age and say, this is not a toy. This is for emergencies. But no, I'd be murdered for saying that, because I have a friend who is dyslexic, and he has his phone in. And listen, I'm an offender too. I said, oh, listen, Max, look that up for me on your magic phone, would you? Choo-choo, which he does. And he said, you know, I have the information of the world in my pocket. You can't argue with something like that, can you? It's very difficult.
Personally, I find that I can, yes, because it might encourage the reopening of libraries, and it might encourage the reinstallation of public phone boxes. I know that sounds like turning the clock back. But,
no, I agree with you there. I really do. I really do.
I think just because something is hard to achieve, I don't think it should defeat us. I feel that on balance, they have been very damaging to young people, young and old.
Yeah, I mean, why take away our telephones? You know, public. Well, why take those away? Let the kids have that. Well, then you got your phone. Blah blah blah. That's it. We're not going to stop that. But why take those away in place of something else? I mean, the whole society now is against elderly people. I mean, they want to make life as difficult as they possibly can for older people, learning new things and all that. No. And people are not going to be bothered anyway. And why should they? Why the hell should they? Well, unless you do, you won't eat. I mean, this is the attitude that is coming. But then, you know, they're trying to kill off the elderly. Of course they are. But now anybody else that they can kill off with this eugenics. Oh, too many people in the world. You know, you've got to go. Well, I take umbrage at that. Don't you?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to throw a spanner in the works here, and that
Go on.
it could appear like a non sequitur, but in terms of education and preparing children to take their rightful and full role in society, do you believe that it is right for children to be given the vote? How do you feel the vote being given to a 7-year-old?
Well, they've never heard of a book, have they?
Or a 9-year-old, or a 13-year-old, or
I think it's terrible because they're missing so much.
Or a 16-year-old. How about, okay, let's choose 16. And the reason why I choose 16 is because very soon in Britain, 16-year-olds will have the vote. Now, are they children or are they adults? Have they been sufficiently educated, both in terms of formal education at school, college, or what have you, and in life, to be able to make the analytical judgments to decide on the future of their nation?
No, sorry, too young.
So how?
Sorry.
Too young.
But that's coming. That is going. 1 year from now, 16-year-olds will have the vote in Britain. Now, surely, if education, the purpose of education is to instill values and knowledge which will help the individual integrate into their own future and into the general benefit of society, or whatever definition we care to give to education as a global enterprise, do we feel that they're sufficiently fulfilled, complete as individuals by the age of 16 to determine the future of the nation?
No, I think it's far too young.
What age do you think? Would you buy a suggestion of perhaps 30?
Probably. I would actually.
I cannot see and it being any younger, because I didn't know who I was much before then. I had all sorts of fancy notions. I'd been influenced. I was quite capable of doing all sorts of wonderful things, and I had many achievements before I was 30. But I didn't even begin to understand the meaning of it all until I was about 40. So why don't we actually limit the vote to 40? 40-year-olds. By that time, you've proved, and we should limit the vote only to those who proved themselves capable of achieving this sense of personal analysis. But that wouldn't be very democratic, would we?
Right. Okay. Now we're running out of time. So
how about only the senior citizens? How about selecting the top?
Harry, you're posing questions.
Let me finish. How about selecting the top 5,000 people in the city to have the vote? Because that's how democracy began.
Now that's very interesting.
When the citizens of Athens,
the Americans at one time, I don't know if it's still true, made 40 as the minimum age to run for office.
You're missing the point I'm making, because in Athens, where democracy began, people didn't have the vote. Only the 5,000 elders had the vote. And they decided for the masses. So we go back to Lisa's elite of governance, of the control. Which is better? Should we have an elite controlling system, or should we have one person, one vote? 16, it'll be next year, 16. The Labour government is going to put in the vote for 16.
Doesn't surprise me at all. Does not
and then 5 years from now, it'll be 10, and so on and so forth. I mean, have we prepared our emerging citizens in such a way to handle that responsibility? And education, I suppose, is the key role in that. A life experience.
Harry, let Kid have his say, because we're running out of time. Deck has to operate a pub.
Okay. Well, actually, I've got to bid you farewell for the moment, because I've been hauled off by equality of women. I'm going to be hauled off by the ear in a minute. So
we've got 5 minutes.
I have to love you and leave you. But we will be meeting again next Friday, I believe. Is that what? Correct?
Yes. Kit wants one quick word with you before you go.
Okay.
The people of 16 already do have the vote in Scotland, by the way, and I know lots of 16-year-olds I'd rather trust with the vote than many of the people I meet down the pub. Present company accepted, needless to say. So no, it doesn't hold any fears for me. I think that about 16 is about right, actually. There are very many older people who really are not prepared to wield the vote with any real judgment or thought. But I don't think we can start limiting it by some sort of test. There's got to be an age cut-off point. I think 16 was quite good, actually.
Right, now, we are leaving many questions unanswered, which I hope that we will answer later in the week. Liza, you came to do your piece today and got involved in a fascinating debate. So I'd like you to come back later in the week to do your piece.
Yes, that would be lovely. Don't worry.
Kit and Harry, thanks very much, because these are the sort of stimulating debates that we have that make Mirador really worthwhile. We have them about once every 4 or 5 days, and the really good stuff comes out of it, and ideas and thoughts that I haven't heard expressed before. I think that we're really making a contribution to our community and our society. I have to call it quits, because otherwise the landlord won't let us in tomorrow morning.
I don't blame him.
So I'm going to sort of say toodle pip on behalf of all of us. Kit, thank you very much indeed. And
you come on back.
And Eliza, thank you for altering your way of.
No problem, Keith.
Yeah.
No problem.
I was supposed to be elsewhere at 11 o'clock, and I'm still here and absolutely fascinated. Harry, we shall see you on Friday.
At what time on Friday? Is it?
You come on at 9 o'clock on Friday.
9 o'clock on Friday. That's what I thought.
And then you lurk so that you can chat to Melissa.
Okay. Okay. Well, great. Well, goodbye to you all. I'm going to get called off right now, so because we're an hour ahead of you, you see, in France. It's now coming up to 1 o'clock in France. So God bless you all, and see you on Friday.
Okay.
Bye bye, Harry. Bye bye.
Bye now. Bye.
Right. Thank you both. A fantastic morning.
Thank you, Keith.
And,
thank you for having us.
I like these stirring the pots, and it is be less afraid of jumping in and shutting Harry up. We have to do it all the time.
Oh, okay.
But
he was going so nicely, it seemed a bit rude.
No. Oh no. There's no such thing as bad manners on these programs. We'll see you tomorrow morning. On behalf of Kit and on behalf of Eliza, toodle pip.